The council chamber stretched like a frozen sea of metal and light, vast enough to hold representatives from 200 worlds. Towering banners hung from the vaulted ceiling. Alien faces of every shape and color watched from elevated platforms. At the center of it all sat Ambassador Jishuan Kim. Her hands rested calmly on the cold metal table before her, but beneath that calm exterior, something was breaking. For 3 years, she had attended these meetings. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of speaking. 3 years of being ignored. Today felt different. The feeling sat heavy in her chest, like the moment before a storm finally unleashed itself. At the podium, High Chancellor Thulmir clicked his massive mandibles together. The sharp sound echoed through the chamber and silenced hundreds of conversations at once. His towering insect-like body was draped in ceremonial robes woven with gold threads older than most civilizations. By human standards, he was nearly 5 centuries old. Like most of the elder species, he never allowed anyone to forget it. The petition from the human delegation has been reviewed, Thulmir announced. A pause. Then came the familiar verdict. Denied. Not a single expression changed among the elder delegates. The Vorten trade routes will remain closed to human vessels. Jijuan slowly rose from her seat. Beside her, Captain Minho Park touched her arm. A warning. A final chance to let it go. And she ignored it. High Chancellor, if I may speak. Laughter exploded through the chamber. Not polite laughter. Not amusement. Mockery. Cruel, deliberate mockery. Ambassador Krexith of the Vorten Dominion leaned back in his chair, his reptilian eyes gleaming with amusement. The children wished to speak again. More laughter followed. Jijuan felt her jaw tighten. Still, she kept her voice steady. Our colony ships have been attacked 7 times in the last month. We possess evidence linking those attacks to... Enough. Thulmir interrupted before she could finish. He didn't even bother looking at her. Your primitive security concerns are not the concern of this council. A ripple of approval spread through the chamber. Humanity has been a member for only 50 years, Thulmir continued. When your species has earned 500 years of service, perhaps then your complaints will carry weight. Clicks. Whistles. Approving sounds from every corner of the chamber. The elder races nodded in agreement. The younger races remained silent. They had learned long ago that speaking against the elders carried consequences. Jishuan looked around the room. She saw contempt. Dismissal. Cowardice. Species who had grown wealthy through human trade now stared at their desks. Species who had benefited from human technology suddenly found the floor fascinating. No one would meet her eyes. Across the observation gallery, Director Hana Lee gave a small nod. The signal. They had discussed this possibility countless times. Prayed it would never become necessary. Prepared for it anyway. High Chancellor. Jijuan's voice was almost lost beneath the conversations already starting around her. Delegates were moving on. The matter was finished. Humanity had been dismissed. Again. High Chancellor. This time, her voice cracked through the noise. The chamber fell quiet. Thulmir slowly turned toward her. His many eyes narrowed. Ambassador Kim, you have been heard and answered. His mandibles clicked. Sit down. Jinchuan looked directly at him. Then she spoke a single word. No. Silence. Absolute silence. The word hung in the chamber like a weapon. Several delegates froze. Others stared in disbelief. Thulmir's mandibles spread wide in shock. What did you say? I said no. Jichuan calmly reached for her data tablets. One by one, she placed them inside her case. Her movements were precise. Unhurried. Certain. For 50 years, she said, humanity has sat at this table. Click. A tablet disappeared into the case. We have submitted 147 formal petitions. Click. Only 3 were approved. Another click. All 3 were matters that cost this council absolutely nothing. No one moved. No one spoke. Jin Yuan closed the case. The soft sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. We have been interrupted 6,218 times during official testimony. Faces began to shift. We have been denied speaking rights 493 times. More silence. We have been mocked, dismissed, and treated like animals, begging for scraps beneath your table. Captain Minho Park stood. Then another human delegate. Then another. And another. Until every member of the human delegation was on their feet. 15 figures standing together. United. Krexith leaned forward. His amusement was gone. "Where do you think you're going?" Jinchuan turned toward him. Her expression remained calm. But something in her eyes made the reptilian ambassador instinctively lean back. "We are leaving." A pause. Permanently. Shock swept through the chamber. "You cannot simply leave the Galactic Council," Thulmir snapped. "There are procedures. Protocols." Jijuan's gaze locked onto him. "Protocols?" Her voice cut through the room like a blade. "The same protocols that require every member species be treated with respect?" No answer. "The same protocols that forbid interruption during testimony?" Still no answer. "For 50 years, you have ignored your own laws whenever humanity was involved." She picked up her case. "You don't get to hide behind them now." Then she turned and began walking toward the exit. The rest of the delegation followed. The chamber erupted. Shouts. Arguments. Demands. Insults. Some called for them to stop. Others laughed and shouted good riddance. But a handful of ambassadors watched in silence. Not with amusement. With concern. At the doorway, Jijuan stopped one final time. She looked back at the chamber. At the council. At the institution humanity had spent 50 years trying to join. Then she delivered her final statement. "Humanity hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council." The room froze. Effective immediately, all human diplomatic personnel are being recalled. Murmurs spread. All trade agreements negotiated through council channels are terminated. Several delegates sat upright. Now they were listening. All scientific cooperation with council projects is ended. The silence became suffocating. "This is absurd," Thulmir shouted. His voice cracked with anger. "You are nothing." He pointed toward her. "A young species with delusions of importance." For the first time all day, Jijuan smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't friendly. It was the smile of someone who already knew how this story would end. "Then you won't miss us." The doors slid shut behind the human delegation, with a quiet hiss. Inside the chamber, chaos erupted. Outside, humanity began moving. Within 1 hour, every human diplomatic station in the galaxy received the same message. Within 2 hours, ambassadors were packing their belongings. Within 6 hours, every human office in every council building stood empty. The galaxy believed it had just watched a tantrum, a wounded young race storming away in anger. They were wrong. Terribly wrong. Because humanity had not left in anger. Humanity had left with a plan. And by the time the Galactic Council realized what had truly begun, it would already be too late. The Council had treated them like children. They were about to learn that sometimes children grow up, and when they do, they remember every slight, every insult, every moment they were made to feel small. Humanity was going home, and they would not be coming back. The first day after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy celebrated. News feeds across 1,000 worlds showed footage of the human delegation walking out of the council chamber. Commentators from elder species praised the council's strength. They said the humans had shown their true nature. That primitive species always revealed themselves. Eventually, Ambassador Krexith gave an interview on the primary Vortan news network. "Good riddance," he said, his scaled face smug. Humanity contributed nothing. They were always demanding, always complaining. The galaxy is better without them. On the second day, the first cracks appeared. Trade Minister Borahan sat in a secure facility on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, watching reports stream across multiple screens. She had not slept in 30 hours. Her team worked around her, coordinating the largest economic shutdown in human history. "Status report," she said quietly. A young officer looked up from his console. "All human trading posts in the Outer Rim have closed." Station personnel are evacuating now. The Delcor system is reporting complete shutdown. They are asking when operations will resume. Never, Bora said simply. What about the shipping routes? Every human cargo vessel has been recalled. 4,218 ships currently in transit have reversed course. Several alien port authorities are attempting to block departures. Tell our captains to leave anyway. If they are detained, note the system and move on. We will remember which species tried to steal our property. On the third day, panic began to set in. The Delor system depended almost entirely on human trading posts for importing food. Their world was mineral-rich but could not grow crops. When the human stations closed, their supply lines collapsed. Within 72 hours, their government was desperately trying to contact Earth. Every message received the same automated response. This is the United Earth government. Humanity is no longer engaging in diplomatic relations with Galactic Council species. Please do not attempt further contact. Similar messages were being sent across 400 star systems. Worlds that had grown dependent on human logistics suddenly found themselves cut off. The humans had been quiet and efficient, building networks that connected the galaxy. Nobody had noticed how essential they had become until they were gone. Researcher Yuna Song worked in a laboratory deep beneath the surface of Mars. Around her, quantum computers hummed softly. She typed a final command into her console, then leaned back in her chair. It is done, she said to her assistant. All collaborative databases are locked. Access codes have been changed. Every alien researcher who had clearance is now denied. Some of them will be upset, her assistant said. We were working on important projects together. They should have thought about that before laughing at Ambassador Kim. Yuna replied coldly. How many times did I present papers to the Galactic Science Council? How many times was I told that human research was interesting but primitive? They took our innovations and gave us nothing but condescension in return. She stood and walked to a window that looked out over the red Martian landscape. Let them discover their own cures now. Let them solve their own problems. We shared freely because we believed in cooperation. They taught us that cooperation requires respect. On the fifth day, Admiral Dong Yun Choi broadcast a message on all frequencies. He sat in the command chair of the battleship Seoul, humanity's largest warship. Behind him, the bridge crew worked silently at their stations. This is Admiral Choi of the United Earth Defense Fleet. As of this moment, human space is closed to all non-human vessels. Our borders are now restricted. Any ship entering our territory without explicit permission will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. He paused, letting his words sink in. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. Humanity is going home. We are closing our doors. The galaxy wished to be rid of us. Your wish is granted. The transmission ended. Within hours, every human military vessel across the galaxy began the journey home. They moved in perfect coordination, fleets that had been scattered across dozens of sectors, now converging on human territory. Alien military analysts watched in growing concern. The human fleet was much larger than Council estimates had suggested. Much larger. How had they hidden so many ships? On the eighth day, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was tense. Several species representatives were absent, dealing with crises on their homeworlds. The humans cannot do this, Krexith shouted. They are causing chaos. My world is facing supply shortages. Their actions are illegal. High Chancellor Tholmir's mandibles clicked nervously. We have attempted to contact the human government 17 times. They refused to respond. Councillor Velthara, representing the Avon Kelrath species, stood slowly. Her feathers were ruffled with agitation. Perhaps we should ask ourselves why. We dismissed their concerns. We laughed at them. We treated them as inferiors. And they are inferiors. Slammed a clawed hand on his desk. They have been in the council for barely 50 years, and in those 50 years, they built a trade network that half the galaxy now depends on. Shot back. They shared their technology freely, while we hoarded ours. They offered cooperation, while we offered contempt. Now they are gone, and we are suffering for it. The chamber erupted in argument. Species blamed each other. Some demanded military action. Others suggested negotiation. A few, a very few, suggested that perhaps humanity had been right to leave. Director Hana Lee watched the council session from a secure location. The transmission was supposed to be private, but human intelligence had infiltrated council systems years ago. She smiled slightly as she watched them argue in panic. "They still do not understand," she said to her second-in-command. "They think this is about economics. They think this is about trade routes and databases." "What is it about then?" he asked. "Respect," Hana said simply. "We sat at their table for 50 years and asked for nothing but basic respect. They could not give us even that. So now we take our gifts and go home. Let them manage without us. Let them learn what they lost when they decided we were not worth listening to." On the 10th day, a message broadcast across the entire galaxy. It was not from Ambassador Jishwan Kim or any other diplomat. It was from Prime Minister Soman Kang herself, the elected leader of all humanity. She appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device capable of receiving the transmission. Her face was calm, her voice steady. "People of the galaxy," she began, "humanity wishes to make our position clear. We are not returning to the Galactic Council. This is not a negotiation. This is not a temporary withdrawal. This is permanent." She paused, letting her words settle. "For 50 years, we sat in your councils. We followed your rules. We asked for nothing but the respect that all sentient species deserve. Instead, we received mockery. We were interrupted, dismissed, and treated as children." Behind her, footage began to play. Every insult, every time a human was cut off mid-sentence, every laugh at human expense, years of documentation, all saved, all recorded. "We are going home," Salmon continued, "and we will not be coming back. You wanted to be rid of us. Your wish is granted permanently." The transmission ended. The galaxy had learned its lesson, but it was far too late. 3 weeks had passed since humanity walked out. The Galactic Council chamber was packed with representatives, but the mood was completely different from that day. Fear had replaced arrogance. Panic had replaced smugness. High Chancellor Thulmir stood at the podium, his ancient body seeming smaller somehow. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep stress among his kind. "Order. We must have order." Nobody was listening. The chamber was chaos. "My people are starving," Ambassador Krexith shouted, his reptilian features twisted with rage and fear. "The Vortan homeworld depends on human agricultural technology. Our crop yields are failing. We need their assistance immediately." "Your world is not alone," Councillor Valara replied sharply. 17 species are reporting critical supply shortages. Medical shipments are stranded. Technology failures are occurring across the galaxy because humans were the ones who maintained the systems. A delegate from the Malthar species stood, his forearms gesturing wildly. "This is insane. How did we become so dependent on them without noticing?" "Because they were quiet about it," Vela said. "While we talked and boasted, they worked. They built. They connected our worlds with efficiency we did not appreciate until it was gone." Ambassador Kaseth slammed his fists on his desk. "Then we force them back. We send a fleet to Earth. We make them understand they cannot simply abandon their responsibilities." "With what fleet?" Another voice called out from the back of the chamber. "Have you seen the intelligence reports?" A screen activated showing data that made the entire chamber fall silent. Human military strength updated based on recent observations. The numbers were staggering. Admiral Dong Yun Choi's fleet had revealed itself during the withdrawal. What the Council had estimated as perhaps 200 capital ships turned out to be over 700. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, all of advanced design, and those were just the ones they could see. "This cannot be accurate," Thulmir whispered, staring at the screen. "It is accurate," said a military advisor, a being from the warrior Dreth species. "We have confirmed these numbers through multiple sources. Humanity has been building in secret for decades. Their shipyards in the outer systems were hidden from our sensors. Their technology is at least 20 years ahead of our estimates." "How?" Krexith demanded. "How did we not know?" "Because we did not pay attention," Valara said quietly. "We were too busy laughing at them to notice what they were doing. They sat in our councils, nodded politely, and told us almost nothing about their true capabilities. They played weak while growing strong." Another delegate stood, his voice shaking. "Our scientists have been trying to access the databases we shared with human researchers. Everything is locked. Years of collaborative research gone. Medical treatments we were developing together. Inaccessible. Same with our engineering projects." Another added, "The humans were helping us design new jump drives. Now they have taken all the data and locked us out." We cannot even access our own research notes that were stored on their systems. The chamber filled with voices again, each species reporting similar problems. The more they talked, the clearer the picture became. Humanity had woven itself into the fabric of galactic civilization far more thoroughly than anyone had realized. And now they had pulled every thread at once. Counselor Valara raised her voice above the chaos. We should send an apology. We should request formal negotiations. This situation is unsustainable. Apologize. Krexith turned on her with fury. Apologize to primitives. Never. We are the elder species. They should apologize to us for this chaos. They will not. Valara shot back. Because from their perspective, they have done nothing wrong. We dismissed them for 50 years. They asked for respect, and we gave them contempt. They are simply taking their offer of cooperation off the table. Then we demand they return, Krexith insisted. We send a formal demand. Return to the council and resume trade or face sanctions. Sanctions? Vela laughed bitterly. What sanctions? They are not dependent on us. We are dependent on them. That is the lesson we are learning too late. Thamir clicked for silence. Regardless, we must send a message. The council's authority must be maintained. Prepare a formal demand for their return. The message was drafted and sent within hours. It was formal, stern, and full of threats about consequences if humanity did not comply. It took 8 hours for a response to arrive. When it did, every screen in the council chamber activated simultaneously. Prime Minister Salman Kang appeared again, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood a room full of people, military officers, scientists, government officials, and sitting in the front row, Ambassador Ji-won Kim, members of the Galactic Council, Salman began. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. We received your demand. The answer is no. She leaned forward slightly. You had 50 years to treat us as equals. 50 years to listen when we spoke. 50 years to show us the basic respect that any sentient species deserves. You chose otherwise. You chose mockery. You chose dismissal. You chose to treat us as inferior beings, begging for scraps. Behind her, a screen activated showing footage. Hundreds of hours of council meetings. Every time a human was interrupted, every laugh at human expense, every dismissive gesture, it was damning. We documented everything, Salman continued. Every insult, every slight, every moment you made us feel small. We are releasing this footage to the public networks. Let your people see how their representatives behaved. Let the younger species in your council see how you treat those you consider beneath you. The transmission cut to Ambassador Ji-won Kim. She stood and walked forward until she was centered in the frame. The council demanded we return. We refuse. The council threatened sanctions. We do not care. You have nothing we need that we cannot make or find elsewhere. She paused, and her next words were delivered with quiet intensity. Humanity does not negotiate with those who do not respect us. We do not return to tables where we are not heard. This decision is final. We are going our own way. You are welcome to continue without us. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in chaos again, but this time it was different. This time, several of the younger species representatives were standing and walking toward the exits. Over the next week, 5 species formally withdrew from the council, citing the treatment of humanity as evidence that the council no longer served its purpose. 3 more suspended their participation. The council, which had stood for over 1,000 years, was fracturing. Ambassador Krexith watched it happen with growing horror. His homeworld was facing famine. His people were calling for his head. The human agricultural technology that the Vorten Dominion had depended on was gone, and no amount of demands or threats would bring it back. High Chancellor Thulmir sat alone in his office, watching the galaxy burn. He was 500 years old. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. A single species dismissed as young and primitive had brought the entire galactic order to its knees, simply by walking away. His aide entered quietly. Chancellor, more species are threatening withdrawal. The younger races are calling for council reforms. Some are demanding your resignation. Quote, Thulmir's mandibles clicked slowly. They want me to step down because I allowed this to happen. Yes, Chancellor. The problem is not that I allowed it to happen, Thulmir said quietly. The problem is that it should never have come to this. We did this to ourselves. We broke our own rules. We treated a member species with contempt and arrogance. Humanity simply refused to accept it anymore. He stood slowly, his old body creaking. Perhaps it is time for me to step down. Perhaps the council needs new leadership. Leadership that understands that respect is not determined by age or tradition. It is earned through behavior. Outside his office, the galaxy was changing. The old order was crumbling. And somewhere out there, humanity was watching and waiting to see what would rise from the ashes. 2 months had passed. The galaxy was bleeding. The Galactic Council was fracturing. And still humanity remained silent behind their closed borders. Ambassador Krexith had run out of patience. His homeworld was in chaos. Food riots had broken out in 3 major cities. His government was on the verge of collapse. He needed humanity's agricultural technology, and he needed it now. He stood before what remained of the council, his voice desperate and angry. We cannot wait any longer. The humans must be forced to comply. I propose we assemble a coalition fleet and remind them of their place in this galaxy. You want to attack them? Counselors stared at him in disbelief. Have you learned nothing? I have learned that talking achieves nothing. Krexith shot back. They ignore our messages. They laugh at our demands. We need to show strength. Once they see our fleet at their borders, they will understand they have no choice but to cooperate. Several elder species voiced their agreement. They were suffering too. Pride and hunger made for dangerous companions. Within a week, they had assembled a coalition of 17 species. Over 800 warships gathered at the edge of human space. Admiral Dong Hun Choi watched them come. His fleet waited at the border. Ships spread across defensive positions. He stood on the bridge of the Soul, his officers around him silent and ready. Admiral, the coalition fleet is approaching, his tactical officer reported. They are broadcasting demands for us to stand down and allow them passage to Earth. Send the standard response, Dong Hun said calmly. Remind them that human space is closed. Any vessel crossing the border will be engaged. The response was sent. The coalition fleet ignored it. 800 ships began crossing into human territory. All ships weapons-free. Dong Yan commanded. Remember the rules of engagement. Disable. Do not destroy. We are not murderers. What happened next would be studied in military me's for generations. The human ships moved like they were connected by invisible threads. Perfect coordination. No wasted movement. They did not charge forward like the coalition expected. Instead, they split into small groups and began weaving through the enemy formation. The coalition ships tried to target them, but something was wrong. Their sensors could not lock on properly. The human vessels seemed to flicker in and out of detection range. What is happening? Krexith shouted from his command ship. Why can our weapons not track them? His tactical officer stared at his screens in confusion. Sir, they are using some kind of quantum shielding. Our targeting systems cannot maintain a lock. It is like trying to hit a ghost. The human ships opened fire, but their weapons were unlike anything the coalition had ever seen. Beams of light that moved faster than sensors could track. Missiles that adjusted their course mid-flight with impossible precision. And something else, something that made every coalition officer's blood run cold. The human ships were talking to each other, not just communicating, but thinking together. Their tactical AI systems worked in a way that made the entire fleet act as a single organism. Where one ship moved, others filled the gap. Where one fired, others provided covering fire. Perfect coordination, at speeds that organic minds could not match. 17 minutes. That was how long the battle lasted. 43 coalition ships were disabled. Their engines dead, their weapons offline, but their life support intact. Not a single human ship was destroyed. 3 had minor damage, that was all. Admiral Dong Yun Choi broadcast a message to the coalition fleet. You have entered human space with hostile intent. Your vessels are disabled but intact. Your crews are unharmed. This was a choice. We could have destroyed you. We chose mercy. Remember that when you report what happened here today. He paused, then added, you are free to retrieve your ships and leave. If you return, we will not be so gentle. The coalition fleet retreated in shame. Krexith sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. His species had been warriors for thousands of years. They had conquered dozens of worlds, and humanity had swatted them aside like insects. While the military confrontation was happening, Director Han Li was executing the second phase of humanity's response. Decades of intelligence work was about to pay off. She sat in her office on Luna, Earth's moon, and pressed a button across the galaxy. Information began flooding into public networks. Not propaganda, not lies, just facts. The corruption of council members, elder species that preached unity while secretly hoarding resources, war crimes committed by the Vorton Dominion against younger species, secret alliances designed to keep power concentrated in the hands of the elder races, evidence of the council manipulating trade agreements to benefit themselves. It was devastating, meticulously documented. Every claim backed by evidence, communications, intercepts, financial records, video footage. Humanity had been watching and recording for 50 years. Hannah watched the news feeds explode with outrage. Citizens of council species were taking to the streets, demanding answers from their governments. Several ambassadors resigned in disgrace. Others were arrested. Captain Minho Park was leading a different kind of operation. While the galaxy burned with revelation and military defeat, humanity was showing another side of itself. His ship, the Bususan, dropped into orbit around a small colony world. The Kelrath species lived here, the same species as Counselor Vela. They were suffering from the trade shutdown like everyone else, but they had been one of the few species that treated humans with respect. "Captain, we are being hailed by the colony governor," his communications officer reported. "Put them through." Akel appeared on the screen, her feathers ruffled with stress. "Human vessel, why are you here? Your space is closed." "Governor, I am Captain Minho Park. We have brought supplies, food, medical equipment, and technical assistance. Your species treated mine with respect when others did not. We remember." The governor stared at him in shock. "You are bringing us aid, but your government said all cooperation was ended with the council." "Yes," Minho replied, "but not with individual species who showed us kindness. We are not cruel. We simply refuse to be disrespected." "There is a difference," Minho replied with the council. Over the next weeks, human ships appeared at various worlds. Always species whose representatives had been fair, always bringing exactly what was needed: food for the hungry, medicine for the sick, technical support for failing systems. The message was clear. Humanity remembered everything, both the cruelty and the kindness. Ambassador Jijuan Kim watched all of this unfold from Earth. She stood in a garden in Seoul, looking up at the stars. Prime Minister Salman Kang joined her. "The galaxy is in chaos," Salman said quietly. "Yes," Jijuan replied, "but it is a necessary chaos. The old order was broken. It needed to be torn down before something better could be built." "Do you think they have learned their lesson?" Jijuan was quiet for a moment. "Some of them have. Counselor Vela understands. A few others are beginning to. But the elder species, the ones who held power for so long, they are still trying to find a way to force us back under their control. They cannot force us to do anything," Salman said firmly. "We have shown we are stronger than they believed. We have exposed their corruption. We have proven we can stand alone." "Standing alone was never the goal," Jiwan replied. "We want cooperation. We want partnership, but only with those who see us as equals." The council had its chance. Now we build something new. In the council chamber, the remaining members were holding another emergency session. But this time, they were not demanding or threatening. They were afraid. High Chancellor Thulmir had resigned. New leadership was being elected. Reforms were being discussed. The old ways were dying. Counselor Vela stood before the assembly. "We have a choice. We can continue to demand humanity's return and watch our civilization crumble. Or we can admit we were wrong, learn from this, and build something better. And if humanity refuses to forgive us," someone asked, "then we live with the consequences of our actions." Valara replied, "But perhaps if we show genuine change, if we prove we have learned, they might be willing to talk, not as members of this council, but as equals, building something new." The vote was called. The old guard had lost. Change was coming, but the question remained. Would it be enough? And more importantly, would humanity care? They had shown they could stand alone. They had proven they did not need the council. The galaxy had pushed them away, and they had thrived in isolation. Now the council would have to prove they deserved a second chance. And humanity would be watching closely to see if real change was possible, or if this was just more empty words from species who had forgotten how to listen. 6 months had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Council. The galaxy looked very different now. The old council still existed, but barely. What had once been 200 member species was now less than 100. The rest had left, suspended their membership, or were demanding complete reformation. Ambassador Jiwon Kim stood in a new chamber. Not the cold, vast hall of the Galactic Council, but a smaller space, designed with care. Every species that had a representative here had an equal-sized desk. The lighting was warm. The acoustics were designed so that no voice would be drowned out. This was the first formal meeting of what humanity was calling the Alliance of Free Systems. 15 species had joined immediately when humanity announced the formation. They were mostly younger species, those who had been dismissed by the Council just as humans had been. But there were also a few older ones. Councillor Villar's people, the Kelrath, were here. They had been the first to officially request membership. Jiwon looked around the room. She saw hope in the faces, both familiar and alien. Hope that had been missing from the council chamber. "Welcome," she began. "This alliance is built on a simple principle. Every species here has an equal voice. Age does not matter. Power does not matter. When you speak, you will be heard. When you have concerns, they will be addressed. We are all equals here." A young representative from the Talmar species, a people who had only achieved spaceflight 30 years ago, raised a tentative hand. In the old council, they would have been ignored. Here, Jiwon nodded to them immediately. "You may speak," she said. The Talmar stood nervously. What prevents this alliance from becoming like the council? What stops the stronger species from dominating the weaker? It was a fair question, one that many were thinking. "Accountability," Jiwon replied. "This alliance has clear rules. Any member can call for a review of any decision. Any member can propose changes to our structure. And most importantly, any member can leave at any time without punishment or sanction. We do not trap species here. We earn their continued membership through our actions." She paused, then continued. "The council failed because the elder species believed their age gave them wisdom and authority. They stopped listening. They stopped learning. Here we have a rule. Every member must serve time in support roles, even humanity. We will rotate through positions of service so that no one forgets what it means to be heard or ignored." Councillor Villara stood. Her feathers were calm now, no longer ruffled with stress. "I was part of the old council for 200 years. I watched it become corrupted by pride and tradition. This alliance is what the council should have been. I am honored to be here." Over the next weeks, more species applied to join. Some were accepted, others were not, usually because they brought with them the same attitudes that had poisoned the council. The alliance was selective. They were building something new, and they would not let it be corrupted from the beginning. Trade routes were re-established, but only between alliance members. Technology was shared freely, but with protections to ensure it was not abused. Military cooperation was discussed, always with respect for each species' sovereignty. The galaxy's economic center shifted. What had flowed through the council now flowed through the alliance. Slowly, the balance of power was changing. The old Galactic Council watched all of this with mixed feelings. Some elder species were outraged. They saw the alliance as an insult, a challenge to their authority. Others were more thoughtful. They saw it as a lesson they had failed to learn in time. One day, a message arrived at Alliance headquarters. It was from the Council, not a demand this time, not a threat, a request. High Chancellor Thulmir had been replaced by a younger leader, a member of a species that had only been on the Council for 300 years. Her name was Councillor Myth, and she appeared on the screen with humility in her eyes. "Ambassador Kim," she began, "the Council acknowledges its failures. We treated your species and many others with disrespect and arrogance. We have begun reforms. We have removed corrupt members. We have established new protocols to ensure all voices are heard. We request a meeting, not to demand your return, but to learn how we can be better." Jiwon watched the message in her private office. Prime Minister Soman Kang was there with her, along with Captain Minho Park and Director Hana Lee. They had all been together from the beginning. "What do you think?" Salman asked. "I think she is sincere," Jiwon replied. "But sincerity is not enough. The council has made promises before. Should we refuse?" Minho asked. "No," Jishuan said after a moment. "We should meet with her, not in the council chamber on neutral ground. We will hear what she has to say, but we make no promises." The meeting was arranged on a small station in neutral space. Ambassador Jiwon Kim arrived with a small delegation. Counselor Mirth came with an equally small group. The Kelrath counselor Valara was there as well, serving as a bridge between the two groups. They sat across from each other. No grand chamber, no ceremony, just beings talking. "Thank you for meeting with us." Myth began. "I know humanity has no reason to trust the Council. We failed you. We failed many species. I do not ask you to forget that. I ask only that you give us a chance to prove we can change." Junyuan studied her carefully. "What changes have you made? We have established term limits for all positions. No one can hold power indefinitely. We have created a review board where any species can report mistreatment. We have opened our financial records to public scrutiny. And we have written into our charter that interrupting another species during testimony is grounds for censure." "These are good steps," Jiwon acknowledged. "But they are just words on paper. We watched the Council violate its own rules for 50 years. Why should we believe this time is different?" Myth was quiet for a moment. "You should not believe based on words. You should wait and watch. Judge us by our actions. That is what we deserve. What I ask is this: do not close the door permanently. Let us prove ourselves. If we fail, you lose nothing. But if we succeed, perhaps someday there can be cooperation again. The Alliance will not rejoin the Council," Jiwon said firmly. "That door is closed." "I understand," Myth replied. "We are not asking you to rejoin. We are asking for the possibility of future cooperation between the Council and the Alliance. Two separate entities working together when our interests align. No more, no less." Jujuan looked at her delegation. Minho nodded slightly. Hana's expression was neutral. She looked at Valara, who had been quiet until now. "The Council is trying," Valara said softly. "I have watched the reforms. They are real. Not perfect, but real. Change is happening slowly, but it is happening." Jijuan turned back to Meth. "We will watch. We will judge your actions, not your words. If after time has passed and you have proven yourselves, we may discuss limited cooperation. But humanity will never sit at the Council table again. We have built something better. We will not abandon it." "That is more than fair," Mirth said quietly. "Thank you." The meeting ended. No grand agreements were signed. No alliance was formed. But a door that had been slammed shut was now opened just slightly. Time would tell if it opened further or closed again. Years passed. The Alliance of Free Systems grew to 40 member species. Trade flourished. Technology advanced. The younger species found their voice and their strength. The Galactic Council continued its reforms. Slowly, painfully, it began to change. Some of the elder species left in protest, unable to accept equality with those they considered inferior. Others stayed and learned to listen. The Council became smaller, but healthier. Cooperation between the Council and the Alliance began in small ways. Joint scientific projects, shared security concerns, trade agreements, always as equals, always with respect. Captain Unji Beg stood on the bridge of her ship, the Incheon. She was young, born after humanity had left the Council. She had grown up in a galaxy where humans were respected, where their voice mattered. Her crew was mixed: humans, Kelrath, Talmar, and others. They worked together seamlessly. They were not just a crew, they were friends. "Captain, we are approaching the research station," her tactical officer reported. He was Kelrath, his feathers a bright blue. "Thank you, Corvin," Unji replied. "Prepare for docking." She looked out at the stars through the viewport. Her parents had told her stories about the old days, about sitting in council chambers and being laughed at, about the day humanity walked out, about the chaos that followed. She was grateful she lived in a different time, a time when species worked together because they chose to, not because some ancient council demanded it. A time when respect was given freely, not hoarded by those who claimed superiority through age. Her communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we are receiving a message from the research station. They are ready for us." "Excellent," Unji said. "Let them know we are arriving." The ship moved forward toward the station, where beings from a dozen species were working together on projects that would benefit all. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. Far away on Earth, Ambassador Jiwon Kim stood in her garden again. She was older now, her hair gray, but her eyes were still sharp. She looked up at the stars and smiled. They had walked away from the Council because they had been given no choice. They had been pushed out, dismissed, and disrespected. But in leaving, they had built something better. And they had shown the galaxy that cooperation could exist without hierarchy. That respect could not be demanded, only earned. Humanity had not left the table because they were weak. They had left because they were strong enough to build their own. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. The lesson was simple. Treat others with respect. Listen when they speak, honor their concerns, or watch them walk away and build something better without you. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way, but it had learned, and that Jijuan thought was worth all the chaos and pain, because now, finally, things were better. Not perfect, but better, and that was enough.